Hello, I am Tracy Otsuka. Welcome to episode 314 of ADHD for Smartass Women. First of all, Happy New Year. You know, we are starting on our sixth year of this podcast, which is just crazy because it literally feels like, oh, I don't know, 1 year to me. I am still so grateful that you're tuning in. And I was just thinking, I was wondering if there happens to be anyone listening who has literally been following this podcast since the beginning, since 2019. I want you to reach out to me because I would love to have you on my podcast. I can't imagine that there is such a human, but if there is, please let me know. I would love to meet you. Okay, so as you probably know, I normally do a end of year podcast. Actually, it's a wrap up of the end of the year, but it's also a new year podcast. So it's the first of the year podcast. But we had so much going on during this holiday season. We had friends who flew in from Taipei. They spent Christmas with us. We hosted Christmas. We hosted several sets of friends, other friends after Christmas. My daughter's boyfriend then came to visit. We've had birthday parties. We have three more coming up, coming down the pike this weekend. And it was just way too much packed into 2 weeks. So the days got away from me. Does that ever happen to you? My wonderful podcast producer, Zarina, she was all ready to go, but I didn't get my part done in time. So, in true ADHD fashion, you are getting our beginning of the year podcast in the second week of January. January 8th, I think, is when this hits. So, hopefully, you're just like me and you signed up for more than you can handle too. So, you're only now beginning to focus on what you want your 2025 to look like. My goal is always to help you bring awareness to your ADHD brain. I mean, once you understand why you do what you do, life becomes so much easier, right? You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop beating yourself up for not doing things the typical way. Instead, you start figuring out what works for you. So today, I want to explore why starting something new feels so energizing at the beginning of the year and how you can harness that momentum, not just in January, but all year long. We are also going to dive into how to determine what you truly want for 2025, not what others expect from you, but what you want for yourself so you can set a clear, intentional direction for your life. I'll show you how to find that intention, how to simplify it into a single word or phrase, and how to use that as your North Star. Of course, I'll also be sharing my word of the year, a practice that completely transformed the way I navigate my ADHD brain and my life. I love doing this at the beginning of every year. I'll also give you tips and tricks to create your own word for the year so you can approach 2025 with clarity, focus, and confidence. So let's start with why January feels magical for new beginnings. And there are a few key reasons for this. We're going to talk about the power of temporal landmarks. So, temporal landmarks are moments in time. It's like New Year's Day or a new birthday decade or a new birthday year. It can be the beginning of a new season. You know, I'm going to start in spring or I'm going to start in fall. Or even it can be Mondays. You know how a lot of people will say, well, I'll start on Monday. So let's just let this week go to hell, but I'll start on Monday. Have you ever done that? These temporal landmarks relate to time. They help us establish a sense of order. They can also stand out and create a mental distinction between the old you and the new you. These markers help us reset and reimagine our goals, giving a sense of a fresh start. So, New Year's Day is the ultimate temporal landmark. I know, the day that I missed, right? Psychologists call this the fresh start effect. It's like, I don't know, when you open a brand new journal, it's that blank page that makes it easier to imagine your future without the baggage of what you perceive to be all of your past mistakes. And I put mistakes in air quotes, right? We don't believe in mistakes here. You either get what you want or you learn something. And often the air quote mistakes are them happening for you is even better than if they had never happened. So, why does this work for our ADHD brains? Well, these clear transitions, like starting on a Monday or the first day of the month, they reduce overwhelm and decision fatigue by offering a simple, obvious entry point. The mental reset, like celebrating a birthday or flipping the calendar to a new month, it creates a sense of permission to leave behind past chaos and start fresh, free from judgment. So these resets, they just naturally help us to reframe and refocus. So that begs the question, if these temporal landmarks are so helpful for us, how can we recreate them when we're not at the beginning of a new year? Well, we can use smaller temporal landmarks like what I was talking about, Mondays, right? Or birthdays, or the first day of a new month to give ourselves that same, fresh start energy. For example, you could start each week by writing down one thing you want to focus on and treating that as a mini reset. This is exactly how I use or set up my planner every single week. You know, I do my Saturday morning planner, and the first thing I do when I sit down on Saturday mornings is I write down the one thing that I'm going to get done for me for that week. That gives me intention behind it. And I know if I do this one thing, it's going to be a successful week because it's the one thing that I chose just for me. If you want to try my planning system, you can go to ADHDforsmartwomen.com/AOK hyphen every day. I have never been able to follow any planner, and I have been using my planner now for, I believe, going on my 5th year. It's simple, it's easy in, easy out. It's based on a card system. If you go to purchase the planner, my recommendation is just buy the one that's already printed. And I'll tell you that I literally go to my website and I purchase my planner. I pay for it just like you do, because for me, it was just such a hassle to print it. It's a little complicated, but if you don't want to get it printed, you want to print it yourself, there are instructions to do that. But my recommendation is just get the thing printed. It's just so much easier. And I'm actually still waiting for mine to show up since I ordered it so late. Okay, so why else is the beginning of the year such a powerful temporal landmark? Because of the collective energy and social support. There's an electric energy at the start of a new year, right? This collective sense of renewal and possibility that inspires action for us. Everyone is talking about goals and resolutions and fresh starts. And so that collective enthusiasm creates momentum and it makes it easier to feel inspired. And this works especially for our ADHD brains because there's novelty and excitement, right? So that triggers a dopamine boost. When the people around you are also goal focused, you feel more excitement. So more dopamine. And then it's easier to want to do this too. So how can we leverage this excitement any time of the year? You want to find a community of goal-oriented people, whether it's friends, a mastermind group, or my AOK Academy. Their energy is going to help you feel motivated. I had a whole podcast on this back in November. The antidote to chaos is goals. Remember, we don't just jump in our car and start driving without a destination. So why would you run your life like this? If you're around other people with goals and you really like these people, you're going to have goals too, because we like to be around interesting people, and interesting people always have goals. So why else do temporal landmarks work so well for our brain? Well, there's this illusion of a blank slate. Because let's be honest, you can start over any day of the year, right? But the beginning of the year feels special. It's kind of like a mental do-over, a chance to dream big and imagine your ideal life without the baggage of past failures. Again, failures is in air quotes. And why does this work for our ADHD brain? Because we tend to be pretty sensitive to emotional states. We're sensitive to feeling emotions, and a blank slate feels hopeful and optimistic, which generates positive emotion. And we know that positive emotion makes us feel good. Because dopamine, right? And we know that when we feel good, we are much more likely to get into action. We also know that getting into action makes us proud of ourselves. So there's more dopamine, there's more positive emotion, and it just becomes this cycle. Shame truly serves no one, least of all us. So when we can let go of shame about past failures, this actually creates space for possibility. So again, how do we harness this illusion of a blank slate beyond the start of a new year? Well, we can start viewing every day as a potential blank slate. You know, one bad moment doesn't ruin the whole day, and one bad day doesn't ruin the whole week, and one bad month does not ruin the whole year. Makes sense, doesn't it? So consider creating small rituals. You can light a candle at the end of each day to symbolize letting go of the past and preparing for the future, right? This way, you're harnessing the illusion of that blank slate beyond just January 1st, or in our case, January 8th. Every evening, you can end the day by writing down 3 things that you're grateful for in a journal. This helps you shift your focus again to positive emotion. You can also stretch your body or shake out your arms and legs to physically shake off tension. Or this one, I love this one. I call it the quick declutter. You can set a timer at the end of every day for 5 minutes and clear one small area. This symbolizes you making space for new energy while you are also decluttering. And do you know what happens after a month of 5 minutes of decluttering every single day? That's 150 minutes, which is about 2.5 hours. I don't know. I'm not mathing, but about that, right? Okay, so that is the power of setting temporal landmarks. Now, let's talk about finding your intention for 2025. Before you pick your word for the year, we need to talk about intention. This isn't just about setting a goal or crafting resolutions. In fact, I titled this episode, Set Intentions, Not Resolutions. So that means that we have to create a clear vision for our life that's guided by what truly matters to us, what truly matters to you. Think of your intention as your inner compass. I like to call it your rudder, right? It's what keeps you steady and moving in the right direction, even when life gets tough. So why is this intention so important? Because when you hold a vision of where you want to go, your brain helps you find the way. And this isn't just woo-woo, this isn't manifestation, although it is. It's actually rooted in neuroscience. When we pair a clear intention with positive emotion, we literally program our subconscious to seek out opportunities, experiences, and people that align with our vision. But first, you need to figure out what you really want. And this can sometimes be tricky. So let's talk about what you really want. I mean, many of us spend years chasing things we've been taught to value. Material success, external validation, or what our family or culture tells us is important. So what's the problem? Well, those things rarely fill the emotional void, right? To connect with our true intention, we have to ask ourselves much deeper questions. What does success look like to me? What does it actually feel like? What does it feel like in my body? And when in my life did I feel truly alive, fulfilled, and aligned? For example, let's say that you've been told that career success means climbing the corporate ladder. But when you reflect, you realize that your happiest moments were actually the hours that you spent teaching your kids a new skill or helping a friend navigate a tough situation. Maybe you discover that your true compass points you towards service and actually not status. So now we have to connect you to your inner compass, right? Once you have an idea of what truly matters to you, it's time to train that inner compass. And this, of course, starts with positive emotion. Doesn't everything start with positive emotion? Your brain learns through emotion. That's the brilliance of your brain, especially the uplifting kind of emotion, the curiosity, when you feel gratitude, when you feel joy, when you feel awe. These emotions actually activate your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the good part of your brain that keeps you calm, focused, and inspired. It helps you regulate your nervous system, and it signals to your brain that, hey, this intention is worth pursuing. So, how do you activate that positive emotion that connects you to your inner compass? Well, you can recall a positive memory. You can think of a time when you felt alive and aligned. Maybe it was a moment of deep connection with a friend, a professional win that filled you with pride, or a quiet morning walk that it just made you feel calm and peaceful. How else can you activate positive emotion? Well, you can actually create a vision in your mind. So let's say you're the kind of person who you can't ever recall a positive memory, or maybe you even struggle to have any memories. This happens when we have trauma. You can actually create one for yourself. You can imagine yourself thriving. You can picture yourself living the life that you truly want, doing work that inspires you, surrounded by people who bring out your best, helping you feel calm, helping you feel confident. The beauty of our imagination is that our brain literally doesn't care whether the image is real or imagined. And that's because the emotion it produces are real. So when you visualize yourself in this state, right, feeling calm, feeling confident, and thriving, you actually release dopamine and serotonin. And those two neurochemicals are your brain's pay attention chemicals. This actually teaches your subconscious to prioritize that vision, even if it's not yet true. So now, let me give you some small steps to discover your intention. I want to help you make this process even more actionable. So I'm going to give you some small steps to try to discover your intention. So, number one, look for patterns. I want you to reflect on the past year, and I want you to ask yourself, what moments made me feel good? What moments really drained me? For example, if you felt energized every time you worked on a creative project, but you felt drained by endless meetings, what your compass is telling you and what your compass is going to show you, it's going to point you towards creativity and independence. Number two, test your compass, or as I call it, rudder. Spend a week leaning into what feels good. If you're unsure of your direction, just experiment. Try journaling, try taking a long walk, try saying no to obligations that don't feel good, that don't generate positive emotion for you, that don't align with your values. Pay attention to what sparks joy and curiosity for you and write it down. Number three, anchor your vision. Use a daily ritual, we talked about this a little bit already, to stay connected to your intention. Light a candle to symbolize releasing the past and embracing the future. Start keeping a gratitude journal. Set a phone wallpaper with a meaningful image or word that you don't want to forget. For example, one of my students, she wanted to feel more grateful. She recognized that feeling grateful actually felt good to her. And she recognized that when she focused on gratitude, she was paying attention to what she did have. And then she saw more of what she did have. So she set her focus on gratitude in 2024. She created a nightly gratitude ritual where she wrote down 3 things she appreciated each and every day. By the end of the year, her focus had completely shifted from stress and never feeling like there was enough and like nothing was working in her life to feeling like there was always plenty. All of this because she set her inner compass toward positive emotion. I am teaching you here how to trust your inner compass or rudder because it truly is the best expert you have. It is the only expert on you. And positive emotion is your guide. When you feel it, you're on the right track. When you don't, it's a sign to adjust your course. And here's the kicker. no one else can tell you what the right track is for you but you, not your parents, your partner, or your boss. This can only be your journey, and you will know when you're on the right path because of how you feel, the positive emotion that you feel in your body, and the intention that you set for yourself becomes your North Star. So it's your intention that generates positive emotion. That positive emotion activates the rudder or compass inside of you to tell you, yes, you're moving in the right direction, you're on the right track, do more of that. But with our ADHD brains, we can often forget what our goal even is, what our intention for 2025 even is, what our North Star is, right? So, what helps me is to choose a word for the year, right? What I do is I distill my North Star into a single powerful word or phrase. And so, my favorite ADHD friendly New Year's practice is always to choose that word or phrase for 2025. This act of simplification, it's not just symbolic, it's really practical. A clear and concise word is easier to remember and carry with us throughout the year, especially for our ADHD brains that thrive on simplicity and focus. The easiest way that I've found to keep my word or phrase visible is to print it or have it printed on a bracelet or a ring, something that I see every day, many times a day. And then what I also do is I set it as my phone wallpaper. So every time I see it, and how many times a day do you see your phone, right? I see my word and I'm reminded of my intention and my goal for 2025. Now, this simple habit, it ties beautifully into that whole fresh start effect that we were talking about, right? Because it provides a clear, focused intention for how I want to move through the year. Often resolutions fail because we forget about them, literally. How many of you are so excited about your brand new planner? You're using it every day for about 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you completely forget that you even have a planner, right? The same thing happens to me as far as my intention for 2025. A single word, however, it's simple, it's memorable, it's powerful, it is perfect for our ADHD brains. And when we pair that with a visible reminder, like a bracelet or phone wallpaper featuring our word, it becomes even more effective. And the reason is, number one, the simplicity. As I said, ADHD brains struggle with working memory, but one word, we can handle that. Number two, focus. Your word becomes your compass. Number two, focus. Your word becomes your compass, shaping your decisions and actions. So imagine your word for the year is balance. Every time you face a decision, whether to work late or take a yoga class, whether to say yes to a new project or prioritize rest, you ask yourself, does this align with my focus on balance? This single word, it becomes your guiding light. It helps you evaluate opportunities and challenges through the lens of your intention. Look, it's not about perfection. It's about having a compass that consistently points you toward what matters most to you, your intention, right? And then number three, positive emotion. It generates excitement and pride as you actually embody that word. So I want to share with you what's become now a quick history of my words. In 2018, I chose the word nervy. So my mom, when she was upset at me when I was younger, she would look at me and she would say, "Young lady, you have some nerve." Now, I think some kids would be shamed by that, but I wasn't at all. I I actually saw it as her telling me I was bold and I have guts and maybe I'm a little too big for my britches, but I secretly could feel that she liked that I had nerve, right? So I chose Nervy in 2018 because I wanted to push past my fear of visibility, especially around live video And frankly, it's also why this podcast exists, just visibility in general. Like I needed to get nervy. So 2018 was nervy. 2019, my word was consistency. This is the word that kept me showing up week after week, even when it was hard. In 2020, my word was impact. What I focused 220 on was making a difference in ADHD women's lives. And that is the year that everything seemed to really fall into place. In 2021, I chose the word action. I learned to shut down the ruminating chatter in my brain and just jump into action. So instead of going on to Reddit and reading what people were saying, because it's none of my business what other people are saying about me, right? I stopped doing that, or if I did it, I would just shut it down and I would jump right into action. I would turn whatever angst I was feeling, whatever discomfort I was feeling into action. And that really worked. In 2022, my word was outsider. This word really helped me embrace my role as a problem solver and creator. I stopped trying to fit in. I stopped paying attention to what everyone else was doing. I just focused on doing what generated positive emotion for me and changed lives for others. That was also the year that I was writing my book. So it was really important for me to just keep my head down and keep moving forward and writing, right? Then 2023, my word was insider. After years of saying no to relationships because I was so focused on just getting this work done, right? I decided that, okay, so now I'm going to have a book that's going to be coming out in 2024. And I've had my head down. I've been the outsider, but now I really wanted to focus on connection and community because I really missed it, right? And I could no longer keep my head down in a bubble. I wrote the book. Now I had to go out there and I had to talk about the book. And so 2024 was really the year of becoming an insider and really getting comfortable talking about what it was that I had just spent 2 years writing. Okay, so my word for 2024. So 2024, I don't think I did one of these podcast episodes. I went and looked and I couldn't find anything. And I don't even know what my word was. I think it was probably overwhelm, right? I was so overwhelmed with all of the work that I needed to do to promote this book. You know, everything was new. I'd never done it before. I would say it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Losing my mom clearly was number one. Promoting that book, writing the book, and then promoting the book, yeah. I have two sayings. There is no better self-development program than a podcast. And coming in a close second, although it was harder for me than the podcast, a lot harder. And I think it was harder because I couldn't do what I wanted to do, right? There was a publishing company, there were editors, there were marketing people. Everybody kind of is telling you what to do. And so I think that for me, writing a book and publishing a book and promoting a book, I would now say was probably the best self-development because it literally got me out of anything that I was uncomfortable with. I just had to jump and do it. But a very close second as far as self-development is starting a podcast and showing up every week for other people in a podcast. So what is my word then for 2025? Because I realized, oh my gosh, you definitely need to get a word. And I haven't had it printed on a piece of jewelry, but I am going to do another bracelet. And my word for 2025 is going to be, it's already 1 million. This year, my intention, my goal is to help 1 million women through this podcast, my book, my blends, my programs and trainings, every other platform that I have as far as social media. Look, listeners regularly shared how a single episode of this podcast or a reading of my book completely transformed their approach to managing ADHD, which led them to find success, not only in their personal life, but also in their professional life. And these are the stories that, man, they totally drive me. They are literally why I do what I do. They keep me focused when things get hard. They fuel my passion and they remind me why this goal matters so deeply. So when I'm stuck or unsure, I will ask myself, does this decision bring me closer to helping 1 million women? Or which of these decisions, which of these choices will help me get closer to helping 1 million women in 2025? Okay, so now let me give you some tips on choosing your word. Number one, what you can do is reflect on what you want more of in your life. So always start, right, with asking, how do you want to feel? So if you want to feel more courageous in tackling new challenges, things that are difficult, things that make you uncomfortable, the word you choose might be brave. If you're looking to find more creativity in your work or your personal life, maybe your word could be inspire or create. If you want to focus on gratitude and positive emotion, your word could be grateful or joyful. These all connect you back to how you want to feel. And so you can imagine, for example, if you're wearing a bracelet or you're wearing a ring and you're struggling with something, having a word like brave as a daily reminder will always bring you back to, wait a minute, now, how is it that I want to feel? Number two, what you can also do is you can think about a challenge you want to overcome or a value you want to embody. So if you struggle with feeling overwhelmed, you can consider words like simplify or ease. If you're trying to prioritize your health and well-being, your word might be thrive or vitality. Now, if relationships are your focus, you can have words like connect or bond or rooted. What else can I tell you about how to choose a word? Number three, make it personal. Your word should feel like it literally belongs to you. It's part of you. Again, we're going back to how does it feel? Number four, make it visible. We already talked a bit about this, but for visibility, you could have a bracelet engraved with your word. You could paint it on a small rock and just have it sitting on your desk. Again, you could set it as your phone's lock screen wallpaper. I'm showing mine right now, where I create kind of a vision. It's like a vision board, but it's really what I call an action board. And what I do is I have a wallpaper for my phone with images and words that ground my intention for the year. And you know how many times we check our phones, right? So it's constantly coming back at me, what is my intention? Now, as far as buying a ring or a bracelet, some people buy necklaces. I always go to Etsy and I'll post some links for vendors there. So those are some tips on how to choose a word. Okay, so now we talked about temporal landmarks, intentions, connecting to your inner compass or your rudder, and choosing a word. But I want to share some concrete tips to start your year strong if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. The first tip is to create a brain dump. Write down all of your to-dos, your ideas, and your goals. Then cross out anything that isn't essential by asking yourself, does this align with my values, my intentions, my priorities for this year? Then ask, will this significantly improve my life or well-being? I want you to focus only on tasks and goals that truly matter to you, that have intention behind them, right? Delegate what you can. Delegating and learning how to delegate is so important. And then choose just one big goal for that week. If you do nothing but this, brain dump and go through all of the things on your list. If you do nothing else but this for the rest of today, I promise you, you will feel calmer and more inspired, and you will be so happy that you actually did this. Part of what is making you feel overwhelmed is all the stuff that's running in your brain. And so much of it, it's kind of like, when we have an email inbox that is just full. I've got one right now. It's making me overwhelmed. It's just full of emails. And the minute we spend, usually it's like an hour or two going through it, we feel so much better. And it's because we feel in control of what we're doing moving forward. We've gotten rid of all the dead weight. And so that's what I want you to do for your brain. Those are all cobwebs, and they do nothing but generate negative emotion. And we know how negative emotion slows us down. Once you clean it all out, you're going to be proud of yourself. You're going to feel positive emotion. And positive emotion is what inspires action versus negative emotion. We feel paralyzed, right? The second thing that I can advise is if you're struggling with a big goal and thinking, where do I even start? Break that goal into smaller steps and schedule those steps into your week. Keep it simple, no more than 2 steps per day. For example, if your goal is to write a book, start with writing 1 paragraph or outlining 1 chapter. And when I say outlining 1 chapter, I'm talking about this should be no more than 15 minutes. Because we can do anything for 15 minutes. And if 15 minutes doesn't work, well, embrace micro actions. That's number 3. Start small. So if your goal is to exercise, just do 5 minutes. If you can't do 10 minutes, if you're not doing 15 minutes, start with 5 minutes. If it's writing a book, write 1 sentence every morning. That's it. Those tiny actions lead to big momentum. And then I want you to celebrate these small wins because I promise you that they will build towards bigger accomplishments. You will be shocked at how quickly 15 minutes, 10 minutes, even 5 minutes every day can change your life. Maybe that's your word, 5, and that's it. Your word is 5. So look, you don't need a giant list of resolutions to have an incredible year. In fact, for our brains, most brains actually, it's completely counterproductive. You just need clarity, intention, and small, consistent actions. Choose your word, take 1 small step, and let's kill it in 2025 through intentions instead of resolutions. Before I go, I just want to thank you so much for letting me live my purpose in 2024, showing you who you are and inspiring you to be it. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you and truly blown away by how my book has performed and continues to perform. It's a year old now, and I'm telling you, this baby has legs. It continues to exceed my wildest expectations. I couldn't be prouder of it. And of course, in true ADHD fashion, it took the better part of a year for me to realize that, yeah, I should be proud of it. Because you know how our brains work. Nothing is ever good enough. Anyway, if you've read it and you loved it and this podcast has made a difference in your life, I would be so grateful if you'd go over to Amazon and or Goodreads and write a very, very short review. 2 sentences. How about that? Under 5 minutes. Anyway, until next week, stay curious, stay clever, and as always, stay brilliant. Oh, and let me know what's your word for 2025.